So you have a Kenyan flag, you're wearing a Kenyan sweatshirt, you think about Kenya every day. Move to Kenya.
Every day. I will move to Kenya.
Move to Kenya.
No, but here.
What's up, you guys? Y'all are probably looking at this like, what the? This is like really official for me. So I basically got put together by these guys. We're not doing like a chair and one little iPhone vibe. He leveled me up for this interview. So
Level up.
I do have microphones and earphones, and you guys, it's lit. So this is a vibe.
Yeah, and you're official.
Yeah, I'm official. I'm feeling really official in this, to be honest. Like, it's making me nervous. I feel nervous.
Don't be nervous.
All right, you guys, so I was late here, and then he's like, oh my God, are you on Kenyan time?
Yes, you are 27 and a half minutes late.
I was 27 and a half minutes late. You're watching this, you're loving this, and he's going to interview me, right? So make sure that you guys watch that. That's really what I came here for, but I was like, you know, my people have questions as well. So I am here, you guys. Would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Ali Badawi, and as you can see, you're inside of Kilimanjaro Studios. I'm the politics anchor and a co-host of the OneMic Show. This is the longest running diaspora radio program, the longest running program in the history of the Kenyan diaspora. We've been at this, I think, from 2009 or 2010, and we are still going. We've documented everything that's been happening in the Kenyan diaspora, from when we got the new constitution to all the crazy different things that happened here, both in politics, in sports, entertainment, music, so everything.
Wow.
We are the subject matter experts here.
So let's get into it. How did you get to the United States?
Well, that was a very long time ago. I don't even know whether I can remember when that was.
What age were you when you came here?
I think I was, I can't even remember. But I can tell you this. It was the year 2003 or 2004.
So how, you know how old you were in 2003?
I mean, I can't
Come
remember.
on
I mean,
now.
you know, I'm not that
so
good in math.
basically, you guys, he doesn't really want to tell y'all his age.
Yeah. No, but we're going to discuss about my age later. But 2003, you know, I was just off of high school. So you can do your own calculation.
You spent your high school, you spent up to high school in Kenya?
Yes.
Growing up in Nairobi?
In Kenya, yes.
What was that thing that made it like, okay, Kenya, deuces, I'm out to America?
I came to school. You know,
Okay.
I came to the University of Maryland, and that's how I ended up in America. I was College Park, yeah. Yeah, I was just meant to come, go to school, and go back and build Kenya. But
damn, what happened?
I started building Kenya from here.
Yeah, you look kind of far from high school, from college, right? So what did you major in college?
I was a double in economics and poli-sci. And right off of college, I'd already started working when I was in college. Okay. And right off of college, one of the first jobs that I got was with PNC Bank. I was in a management program with PNC Bank. You know, worked for them a couple of years. I've also worked with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. I've worked with Freddie Mac. I've done a bunch of different things since I was off college.
Okay, so the money was too good for you to take a different route and like, hey, I'm just gonna go back.
Well, I'm going to say the move from PNC to Wells Fargo Home Mortgage was not necessarily a good decision that I made. But you're off of college and you're getting all these different options, but you learn from your experiences.
Yeah.
The money was okay. I'm not going to say it was good, but the money was okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
So how was it like growing up for you in Nairobi? Would you consider yourself high class, middle class? Like, where were you? Like, what was your life like in Nairobi?
That's an interesting question. And you see, we have an audience in the studio and they're looking at me directly trying to wait to see what I'm going to say. Because that's...
Am I asking the questions that y'all want to know?
Now, Nairobi is an interesting place. I grew up in a neighborhood called Nairobi West. I'm sure you might be familiar with Nairobi West.
Yes.
At the time, and even right now, it's still considered, like a middle-class neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
It's giving Lavington.
I don't know whether Lavington, but it's right there in between where you can still vibe with the Lavi guys and you're still a guy on the ground. You can still go to Kibera and get some street credibility when you're walking the streets there.
I mean, so you grew up pretty privileged.
I'm not going to say privileged, but I'm going to say I grew up very comfortable.
Blessed.
If I sit here and say that I struggled, that's going to be an insult to my family, to my parents, because my first time to struggle was when I came to the United States.
And we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Did you go to public school in Nairobi or private?
No, I went to private school.
That says enough, you guys. So, what were you expecting when you got to America? So you're like, oh my God, I'm about to go to UMD. What was that vision like for you? Like, were you scared?
Now, here's the interesting thing, like the vision that I had of the U.S. before I came was based, of course, on movies that I'd seen, like music videos and all that. So that's, because I'm a very positive person, so that's what was stuck in my mind. And I got a very rude shock, like within the first couple of weeks when I was here.
What shocked you?
Like what shocked me is my expectation and what I got. And this is because, let me say this, when I think that year when I was coming, I think it was 2003, 2004, there were these very nice videos on MTV. MTV was still up there at that time, and I was watching these videos by, I can't remember the name of the song, Fiesta.
Okay.
Jay-Z and R. Kelly. I mean, I know R. Kelly, can't talk about him that much right now, but that's the vibe I was expecting.
Okay.
That
I still listen to R. Kelly. Yeah. I'm not going to cancel him.
Yeah, that Fiesta vibe. That's kind of the expectation that I had.
Okay.
But I got here and within 2 weeks I was at Target.
Target?
Like, scanning groceries. Within 2 weeks.
Really?
Yes.
Damn. I mean, is that bad?
I mean, it's not bad, but I think, like reality sank in real quick. Like when I got here, because I had some time before joining college, because I think college was starting in September, and I got here a couple of months before. I was living with an aunt of mine, very nice aunt. She relocated back to Kenya, and she just from the very beginning, never babied me and just told me this is the deal here. This is what you're gonna expect, and you have to work.
Yeah, you gotta work.
Yeah.
Here ain't no such thing as a free lunch in America.
Yeah, and you see, the thing is, I never had to work in Kenya. And you see, here's the interesting thing. A lot of times I see, and of course I can't speak for everyone, but there's a romanticization of poverty stories from Africa. And I'll tell you something. Most Kenyans who come here for school or who immigrate here, most of them are not necessarily poor people, like back home, because that process of getting here is very, very expensive.
And you know what? I'm glad that you brought that up, because I always ask, because there's so many people who hit me up on my channel like, yo, I want to come to America, please. Like, how can I get to America? And then there's people who are like, oh, it was so easy. And I'm like, so what's the gap here? Why was it easy for you, but like this person is begging?
So I can only speak for myself and for a number of people that I know who came here, there is a tendency sometimes to want to glorify the fact that, oh, I came from a mad hat, I came from a village. Even a lot of people in these villages, they're not exactly poor people. Yes, they may live in a village setting, but they're not poor people. But there's a tendency sometimes to try to, there's a tendency to show that in Kiswahili we'll say nimetoka mbali, and a lot of times, no, hujatoka mbali, like you were living in a village, like you had clean water, you had running water, you had food every day on the table. And I'm not saying there's no poverty in Kenya. There's very intense poverty in Kenya. Okay. But I'm just saying most of the people who are able to come, and of course I'm not speaking for everyone, it's a very expensive process. Whether you came for education or whether you came through a green card, it's a very expensive process to do it. It's not possible for someone who cannot put a chunk of money together to be able to do that. You got to
have a lump sum.
Yes.
When is the last time you went to Kenya?
January. I went in December. I came back in January.
How long do you stay when you go there?
Typically 5 weeks. Maybe occasionally I may do 6-7 weeks, but typically 4 to 5 weeks.
Who do you stay with?
I still have my family back home. I still have my parents back home, and I have a lot of people. I have a lot of family back home, so I stay with a lot of different people. My grandmother just passed on recently.
Sorry, Pole.
Yeah, she's someone who I used to hang out a lot when I was in Kenya.
Yeah.
But I still have a lot of my family back there.
Who is your family that you have here in America with you from Kenya?
I have a lot of people here.
Like family?
Yeah, I have family in different states. I have family in Seattle, Washington. I have family in Ohio. I have family. This is extended family. I'm talking cousins, like aunties.
Did they come before you or after you, or like a mix?
Some of them, it's a mix. Some of them came before me. Some of them came after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are you single?
That's something that
let's say, are you married?
That's something that, like my personal relationships, I don't talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask if you have like a boo thing in Kenya that you kind of go see, or not really?
No.
So what exactly do you do when you go back to Nairobi?
I go see family.
Like, what do y'all do? Are you just kind of like kicking it leisure, or do you like kind of hit the streets, go to the beach? Like, what's the vibe like for you when you're like vibrating in Nairobi?
No, mostly because I have a very short period of time there, most of the time is spent with family.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, most of the time is spent with family. It's very difficult. I'm not even quite familiar with Nairobi nightlife because most of the time when I go back, there's really not enough time to do that whole nightlife thing, because you're here, you're in this house, in that house, in that house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people sleep at night, and then you could step out. But we'll chat later. Do you feel Kenyan when you go home?
I always feel Kenyan when I'm here and when I'm back home. I go frequently, so I don't have that feeling of being too Americanized, because I go back home very frequently. Like the most I've stayed without going home maybe is 2 years. So I don't have that issue of not feeling Kenyan when I go back home.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
Do you cook and stuff when you're here, like Kenyan food?
Oh, yeah. You do have to cook when you're here. Like you do have to cook. And here's an interesting thing. Back in Kenya, we used to have like housemaids do a lot of things in the household. So I had to learn real quick how to do a lot of things when I got to the US. And that's why I keep telling people, America is good. America has a lot of good things, but a lot of people in Kenya and in Africa generally are also living very comfortable lives.
They don't get it, y'all. When I say I'm so fucking tired. I have been like spoiled by life in Africa. So like I'm washing clothes, I'm washing dishes, I'm cooking, I'm driving, and like this sounds so bad, y'all, but like I'm stressed. Like this is a lot of labor to just live, and that's not including you working.
Yeah.
So things that are very easily like, oh, I'll just get someone to come and wash my clothes, like for whatever dollars. Like, no, nobody will step into your house here to clean your shit for no less than like $150.
Absolutely.
And that's for like a couple hours, not even the whole day. For that, you can get somebody for the whole month to live with you. So it's like you just forget how taxing those things are. So what is your plan? Are you going to ever great escape back to Kenya?
That plan has always been there. Like with most Kenyans who are connected to back home, we always have that great escape plan. I'm personally trying to figure out how that's going to be, because I definitely do not want to retire in the U.S. The U.S. is a great place to be, a great place to work, but I don't necessarily think it's a place where I would want to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have been successful, or like life would have panned out for you if you had not moved to the United States and done college? Like, why didn't you see yourself just kind of going to econ and business school at a university in Nairobi?
That's something that I always wonder, like what would have happened if I stayed in Kenya. I think I would still have been okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would still have been okay. I just don't have a reference point because I've been in the US my adult life.
Yeah.
And there's certain things, like when you go back home, you start seeing them being done differently.
Like what?
Like just getting certain things done where in America where you can do it. For example, something so simple like you need an extension cable. You can just hop on Amazon and it will be delivered by the following day. Or you just can run to Best Buy. But I realize, like back home, you have to be patient. You have to know the places where you need to go and get them. So that microwave mentality is not there where I need it now, I get it right now.
Yeah.
And which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other differences that you feel like would make it hard for you to like transition back? Like what's stopping you?
I think it's just being here for a long time. Yeah, being here for a long time, and the most I've spent in Kenya maybe 6 weeks. So I guess just that transition and that reality of now I'm back here, that will be the most difficult part because it's an unknown. Like I don't know. I'm kind of used to the way things work out here.
Yeah.
So
it's your new normal.
Yeah, it's my new normal. So I do go frequently, but the other thing is that I noticed that the cost of living in Nairobi is very high, has become extremely high compared to when I left.
Really?
Yes.
Is the income going up as well? Like, what do you think it is for life for people there?
I don't think the income is going as fast enough as the prices are going up. I mean, I remember, like a time in Nairobi in the 90s when you could purchase, I want to say milk and bread for less than 10 shillings, or maybe I think even 5 shillings, I can't remember. Yes. And that was in the 90s. It wasn't too long ago. I think maybe 10 shillings. Right now, to purchase milk and bread, you need maybe 150 shillings.
I mean, the 90s was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
That is kind of long.
No, it's not. It's
Is
long
it
for
not?
you?
I mean, that's my whole life. I was born in 92.
Okay. All right. I was born before 92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who are like, oh my God, it's bad when people leave their countries instead of like working to make it better? So you said that a part of this show is like you working with people in the diaspora who live here, and like you felt like you could improve things in Kenya more from here. Exactly what did you mean by that, and like how?
Not necessarily improve things in Kenya from here, because I think the people who are best suited to improve in Kenya are physically in Kenya. But I think we can just work together. Like I've seen what the Indians have done with the diaspora population, and they've been able to take so many jobs back to India. We've seen what they've done in Silicon Valley, and a lot of these connections that these companies have to India. So we're talking, like of just collaborating with the government and other organizations to be able to take advantage of opportunities that are available. Yeah, to be able to partner and get something going back home. The Kenyan economy at the moment relies on a big part on remittances that come from the diaspora. Now, beyond those remittances, there was a study that showed, I think most Kenyans out here remit around 5% of their annual income back home on average. Yeah, and now there was a challenge where is this other 95% going? I mean, some of it, of course, is being invested here. So we just are trying to look for forums to get treated like foreign investors get treated, because there's a lot of foreign investors in Kenya who are making a lot of profits in different opportunities. So those are the ones that we are looking out as diasporans for,
Yeah.
to see whether we can get that same treatment that foreign investors get.
What are some areas that you like to focus on as far as like investing, and what are some like focus areas that you think are important that need to be invested in?
An area that I feel has grossly been underinvested in, and some people may disagree with me on this, is media, because you can see we are doing media here. There's a lot of one dimension media in Kenya. Like if you go to this media house and this media, you're gonna get exactly the same story. There's nothing unique you're gonna get. So I'm talking about non-profit style media, whereby, you know, like NPR style media, where you're not motivated by ratings, so that people can be told stories that are not being told across Kenya. Because you can see, I mean, even from you being there and having traveled around Kenya a little bit more than the average Kenyan, you'll notice that even within Kenya, there is some level of not knowing what's going on this other side of Kenya. Yeah, that happens a lot, and I'm guilty myself. You know, like I've not traveled as much around Kenya as I ought to have.
Have you traveled more than me?
Actually, I would comfortably say no. I'd comfortably say no. I've never been to Kisumu. I've never been to Western. I've never been to that side of Kenya. You know, and I have so many friends from out there. Maybe they need to. Maybe this is the point. If they're listening, they need to invite me.
Yeah.
I've never been to that side of Kenya. You know, like
You
I
guys,
know so much about it.
anybody watching who wants to hang out, tell them to pull up.
Yeah, you know, and that's sad.
That's not sad. It's life.
Yeah, it's yes, it's
Yeah,
life, but it's also sad that we don't have that sense. I've traveled. I've probably traveled to more U.S. cities than I have Kenyan cities and towns.
I mean, you live here as an adult. You know,
I lived in Kenya
naturally.
too. I lived in Kenya too, and I traveled there so frequently.
So when you started at UMD, did you have a Kenyan community there? Like, who did you kind of gravitate to?
No, when I started, there was always a Kenyan community from when I got here. You know, there wasn't like a Kenyan community per se within UMD, but the DMV always had a vibrant Kenyan community. You know, like the younger crowd, especially the people who there was a lot of nostalgia with what was happening back home at the time. You know, in terms of entertainment, music. So we were frequently getting together. At that time, there was a meeting spot called Safari on Georgia Avenue in Washington, D.C. I think it might be there, but it's no longer owned by Kenyans. And then at the moment we have Swahili Village right here in Beltsville, and there's one in D.C.
Yeah, you guys, he's gonna take me to Swahili Village.
Yes.
I'm so pumped because y'all know I've been talking about this.
Yes.
Because I looked at the menu and was like, what the fuck?
There you go.
That's expensive.
But you know, I have no problem with that. You know why?
Why?
You know why? I have no problem with that, because we pay premium price for other cuisines, for Italian cuisine, for sometimes you even have high-end Indian restaurants. So I'm okay. You know, like I'm personally, yes, initially I was like knowing, you know, like Kenyan food, I was like, oh wow, this seems pricey. But I think that's the original idea of the owner, to make it a high-end restaurant. And
maybe it's because I was looking for just Kenyan restaurants in general, but I didn't see a lot of like mom and pop Kenyan spots. So like you can go to like a Mexican luxury restaurant, or you could go to like a little taco place around here. Like there's more of a scale, a spectrum.
So we used to have mom and pop Kenyan restaurants, and I don't know whether we still have them. We used to have some in Baltimore. I don't know whether we still have. Yes, we do have Charlie Brown, for example, in Baltimore. We have there's Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata is Ugandan owned. But you know, Uganda, they eat our food, so you know, they copy
Ugandan
everything.
food is definitely different than Kenyan food.
It's different, but what they sell in the restaurant is chapati and all those other foods that you expect to find in Kenya. They have pilau and all that stuff. So, and they do have, you know, the Ugandan food too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's another spot where you can get Kenyan food.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm coming all the way from Virginia, so when I'm looking on the list and I type in like Swahili food, Kenyan food, and all I really see is Swahili Village. It was like a big for me. But how did you feel about the last elections going on? Like, how is it for you as a Kenyan when you're like sitting back and you're here? You're not a dual citizen.
I am a dual citizen.
Okay, so technically, do they have like voting abroad for
Yes.
So you vote abroad?
Yes, we did vote.
Dang, how does that happen?
We did vote. You know, Kenya is very advanced politically.
They're going to make sure they get those votes.
Yes. Kenya is very advanced politically. This was the first time we were voting in the United States. The first time Kenyans voted abroad was in the 2013 elections. They voted in the East African countries.
Okay.
And then in 2017, they moved over to, I think it extended to South Africa and a couple of other countries. And then this election, you know, like US, Canada voted. I think in Europe there was Berlin, the United Kingdom, and the Middle East there was Qatar and the United Arab Emirates.
How does that work?
The organization that does elections, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, they send agents here. They sent out agents here for registration. That was back in January.
Wow.
For registration to vote, and then they send them back to run the election. So the same day that the election is being held in Kenya was the same day that it was being held here, of course, on American time.
And you had to go meet in one spot? Like...
So in the U.S., the voting stations were in D.C. At the embassy. We have a consulate, a UN mission rather in New York, and then we have a consulate in L.A. So there were only those 3 locations, and of course we were fighting for more locations. But this being the first time in the U.S., we were like, let's just get started, and we'll try to find, you know, like other places, because the places where you have most Kenyans in the U.S. are cities like Dallas,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, I'd say maybe comes number 3. I would say Dallas. And the Texas Triangle, Dallas, Houston. I don't know whether to include Austin there, but a lot of Kenyans are going there too. And then we also have Kenyans in Boston. That's another big Kenyan hub. Atlanta, a lot of Kenyans in Atlanta, Georgia, and now the West Coast, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington is another new Kenyan hub that's really growing, where a lot of Kenyans are going.
So DC is not on that list.
The DMV is on the list, but the DMV is kind of scattered between Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I would say maybe DC might come maybe number 4. It's up there, but definitely Dallas and Boston, and maybe ATL. I would say are up there on the top 3. Seattle, Washington is coming very strong, so I would argue that they're coming up there too.
Okay. Do you think that all these people who live throughout, because most of these highly populated Kenyan American cities you just named are not the ones that the voting was taking place, do you think that a lot of people actually went to these locations to be able to make their vote count? So we had a lot of content in this studio right here, and there's, you know, when you talk elections, Kenyan elections, there's a lot of emotions. You know, like I'll say this, I was on the losing side. Wow.
Yeah, I was on the losing side.
So you wanted, what did they call him, like Baba?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
Well, you know, we may need another show for that. We may need another whole show for that. But I think at the moment we just have to wait and see how things will happen. I mean, he's run multiple times, and he's not won. And this time we felt really positively that he was going to win. You know, the election was disputed in the Supreme Court.
And denied.
Yeah.
Hang it up.
Yeah, it was disputed, but there's a lot of Kenyan history that if I start talking right now, you know, like I'm gonna bore your audience. They're gonna get off one by one. But
I have been told to shut up because I do not know Kenyan politics. It's not my business. But no, I supported Ruto.
No, there's nothing wrong, you know, like with talking Kenyan politics. But the only thing you have to understand is that it's a very sensitive subject.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, really, I supported Wajakoya, but I knew he wasn't going to win, so then
So who did you support, Ruto or Wajakoya?
I knew it was either going to be Baba or Ruto, because obviously Wajakoya wasn't going to win. But Wajakoya, for me, was just like... I just supported his whole, like, putting himself out there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a confidence for me, and it's just... I knew he wasn't going to win, but... If I could have chosen one myself, I would have chosen him. 1. 2, after that, it's either going to be Baba or Rudo.
Yeah, but
So I went more, I relate more with Rudo's story.
Yeah, but the sad thing that has happened to politics, both in the U.S. And in Kenya, is that I feel like people with extreme positions are the ones who have feasted on the political pie. Like there's a lot of people who maybe not necessarily on this side or that side, but they never get their voice in because the political system, and just the way disinformation and misinformation runs across social media, it tends to reward people who are on the extreme sides. So that's a sad thing, and I think that's part of the reason why so many things are not working politically, both here in the U.S. And also back at home, because the people who actually have the solutions to the problems, who really want to solve them, are not cut to, like duke it out politically, like the way people on the extreme sides do it. So that's a sad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is something that I would want to, like going back to Kenya, I would want to try to figure out what is it that we need to change within our political system so that we can have a situation where the people who are voted in are people who actually care for the people and want them to prosper.
Want the best for the real people.
Yes.
I just like the fact that Rudo was like from the ground up.
He wasn't really from the ground up, and you see that's a problem with disinformation. He was a member of parliament by age 30. He wasn't from the ground up, and that ground up story is what I was telling you before, where a lot of people like to fashion themselves as, oh my God, like I came from this poor place, I was almost dying. Those are romantic stories.
Yeah.
And people like them. A lot of times, these stories are not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to wrap it up pretty soon here because we have to get ready for my interview for you, which you guys better watch.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, are you happy here?
Yeah. I'm always happy wherever I am. I tend to find my happiness.
That's a very vanilla answer.
It's not a vanilla answer. I tend to find my happiness wherever I am, but I'm always thinking of Kenya. There's not one day since I came to the U.S.
So you have a Kenyan flag, you're wearing a Kenyan sweatshirt, you think about Kenya every day. Move to Kenya.
Every day. I will move to Kenya.
Move to Kenya.
No, but here's the thing that I think I want people to understand, and I think we're going to have this conversation once we start the OneMic Show. I think as Black people, we need to be comfortable with being in each other's spaces. We need to start being comfortable. As African Americans need to be comfortable coming to Africa and staying there, and Africans who are living in Africa need to be comfortable with that, and vice versa.
Preach.
We need to be comfortable living here, and Black American people, descendants of slaves, also need to be comfortable with people coming from the continent and living here, because we need to be on both sides. And you know why I say that? It's because we built this country.
Yeah.
We built this country. We can't have built this country. I'm talking about the descendants of slaves.
Yeah.
We can't build this country and then just leave and say, oh, you know what? Things are not working here. We need to be on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's why we should be okay.
Last question.
With people crossing over.
Last question for me, because you're saying we, but I sometimes feel like, and that's where we're trying to bridge the gap. You, a Kenyan who was born in Kenya, you have descendants in Kenya, you're Kenyan, and me as an African American, you don't think it's kind of a different feel?
A different feel in terms of culture or in terms of...
culture. So you're saying like we built this country, but technically, did we build this country or my ancestors built this country?
That's what I said. That's what I said, the descendants of slaves.
Okay. Well, no, you said we.
When I say we, I meant, like...
Because you're Kenyan.
Yeah, when I said we...
Y'all were in Kenyan.
Yes. When I said we, I, categorized it with the descendants of slaves.
Just blacks in general?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and here's the reason, real quick, before we end this, here's the reason why we need to work together. Is because everybody else is working together. Yeah. Except us.
Facts.
Everyone else is working together. The Indians are doing it. The Arabs are doing it. So we should do it regardless of which country we're from, where we were born, whether we were,
African American,
whether
West
we
African,
know exactly what village we come from, or whether
Yeah.
we're still trying to find where we come from. We have to work together if we are to succeed on both sides, and we need to be on both sides.
I love this. Thank you. I love this. Thank you for giving me your time, you guys. Our interview is about to be lit, and I totally agree with everything you're saying because my purpose here, as y'all know, is bridging gaps. Like, I just want Africans of the diaspora all over to love each other, African Americans. I just want Black people all for Africa, Africa for Africans, and those who used to be African and are no longer like in Africa but are still Africans in other places. Amen.
Absolutely.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my purpose
Yeah,
here.
and another real quick before we end, I know it's coming to an end. There was one of your interviews where the people were talking about just what I mentioned before. Be comfortable with people coming to your space. Now I'm talking to Africans, with other Black people from other parts of the world coming to your space and not expecting anything from them. We don't want investment from you. You're just coming here to vibe with us, to reconnect.
Yeah.
That should be enough. This thing of, oh, you have to come and I don't know.
What are you bringing back?
Yes, exactly. That we should cut that out.
Yeah, if
We
they
should
want to come
completely
and
cut that out.
vibe.
Where people should just come in with no strings attached.
Amen to that. Well, you guys, y'all heard it here first. Keep watching this. I think I'm gonna add a little vlog snips from Swahili Village and give y'all a little review onto this. But thank you so much for vibing, you guys. Make sure you go and watch. You do it live and then upload it to YouTube.
Yes, we do it live and then we cut it down to small pieces and upload it in YouTube. So we're here every Friday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook and on YouTube, the OneMic Show. You don't want to miss it. We're here like the sun.
All they need is one mic.
We never set.
Yes.
Yeah. All they need is one mic.
Asante sana, you guys.
Anytime.
Bye. That was nice.